My name is Dan Keough, and this is Michele Kimmet. We're with SmartSense by Digi. We are the ones currently keeping you from drinks and cornholes. So if you can participate, I promise. I only have like 150 slides, and we'll make this super quick, okay? So I'm the head of customer success at SmartSense. Essentially, what that means is we focus on success. Support is the reactive version, and we like to take the proactive version with our customers and our technology. I got my start in baseball. I was actually a professional scout for the Diamondbacks and Red Sox, and then I did a pivot into IoT, for the last couple decades. We're focused on technology devices and how can we help empower customers to meet the desired outcomes, solve environmental problems that they're having, etc. So, what's me?
And I'm Michele Kimmet, so I am the Michigan native part of this team. He's from Indiana.
Yeah, I ran us to Notre Dame.
Yep.
Sorry.
But I've been in food safety for about 15 years with different organizations. And the common link has kind of been, how do we keep people safe and protected? So I was with Restaurant Technologies previously. We were bulk fryer oil management. So if any of you guys have done the, walk of dread out to the dumpster and why it burns on your arms representing that, we automated all of that. And then I found my way to Danny and this team where we are monitoring temperatures and environmental regulations to make sure that what we're putting into the world, whether it's food like we're talking about here or pharmaceuticals, are safe for consumption.
Yeah, so we were excited. We were invited to speak. This is our first time here. There's a lot of what we do with sensor technology, but the most critical thing is while you're collecting data, it's what you do with the data. So we have some couple stories we're going to share, a little bit about us, but most importantly, how the data can use prescriptive analytics to start targeting specific actions to challenges and opportunities.
So with that, I'm going to play a little trivia. Any guesses on what those four numbers might represent? Different pieces, go ahead and just shout. You get a drink after this. Nothing, no ideas? Okay, we'll take right into it. So 1.3 billion tons of food waste is produced globally each year. To put that into perspective, that is about 200 million elephants. There's only 500,000 on the planet, so you're going to have to just trust me that that's the weight of an elephant, but that's true. That's a lot, right? When we get into billions, that's kind of astronomical. 58%, again, this is an EPA statistic, of food waste causes 58% of the methane emissions that we've got going on in the world. We got a wow up here. It's a biggie. This is what each of you and I contribute to food waste on an annual basis on average, 219 pounds. To have a little perspective on this is 20 pounds more than the average American male. So we are throwing out a person every year, each of us, on what we're doing in food waste. And the last one, again, mind-boggling when we get into this, billions. All of this contributes then to the global economy of $940 billion that we are wasting when we look at food waste in general. So what can we do? How do we start combating that, right? These are probably some of the ones you guys are familiar with, right? We've got food, I'm seeing some nodding. We've got food donation, which is an incredible way of doing it, or repurposing, right? Out of rotisserie chicken that didn't sell, but we kept it in temperature. We know it's safe. Now we're going to put it into chicken salad tomorrow. Government regulation isn't as dominant here. It is a big thing in the EU where they are putting percent reduction targets in place, or they are doing actually incentives, tax reduction, that sort of stuff. How do we hit those targets? But the one we're going to kind of focus on today is process enablement and workflow. So big numbers that we just presented. How can we know what we can do here. And this alone, food donation and repurposing, if we do it right, can eliminate about 50% of the food waste. How do we keep getting more out there? And how are we aware of that on a regular basis? So this is where IoT technology comes in. Does anyone know what IoT is? That's what I thought. I was the same way for years. We got one person. What is IoT?
Say like Internet of Things.
Yes, which sounds completely made up, right? Yeah, it sounds like something, Billy Wonka talks about. Internet of Things. So essentially, Danny said this at the beginning, right? Data is fantastic, and we are inundated with data on a regular basis. But what the heck do we do with that? And how do we get it from reliable sources so that we can make informed decisions and that we can encourage our teams or the folks that are working in front of the customers or in front of the patients are making those proper decisions at the right time. So what we're looking at here is what we actually do. So we put sensors into static, what we call assets. So think of a refrigerator, a walk-in, or into a freezer. But we also do it in mobile. So if you are shipping, like we're repurposing food, or you've got a trailer that is shipping food from a manufacturing site to the retail location, we are able to monitor all of that in the environmental conditions. What's the temperature? In the mobile issue, we're actually able to look at impact and light detection, because we know that affects things as well. All of that then goes into the magical cloud that is the internet and the cloud. And then from that, we can come out with workflows. Okay, something's out of temperature. What do I need this person to do? How do I document that? For anyone that was in the session, the mobile, the food truck session, right? We talked a lot about the need for temperature monitoring. How do I do that? And then train these people that maybe hadn't grown up in a food safety culture. They don't know what I need to do next. So how do we do that with the data? And then we can work through it, so that we've got prescriptive actions, and we'll talk a lot about that in the stories. So the data is telling me this refrigerator looks like it's going to start to fail. If I can get ahead of that and take product out of it, now I'm reducing waste, but then I'm also making sure that we've got product to give to our customers. Makes sense? Seems like a complicated thing, but Internet of Things is real. It is not a made up term.
Yeah, so I wanted to share a couple different stories. So one of the things we do is to try and collect the most accurate data we can. We install our equipment about every 4 feet apart. The reason why we do that in refrigeration is we try to hit every compressor in a unit. So this is just a nice little example. This is kind of a bunker cooler. So if any of you have gone into a grocery store where you're kind of reaching in to grab sausages, bacon, stuff like that, it's probably in a bunker like this. But this is a really great example of where you can leverage sensor and IoT technology to detect potential failures. So what you can see here in this example is you have the left sensor and the right sensor. And the biggest indicators, you start to see the two sensors deviating from each other. Now, traditionally, without technology like this, you wouldn't think anything of it. And A or B, you wouldn't really even know what's going on until you walk in the next day and you see the fridge is down, all the meat has turned brown, it's oxidized, and nobody's buying, and you're throwing all the product out. So that contributes to food waste. So what we try to do with customers is we partner, we prescribe different actions with our technology and machine learning, where what we're doing is we're starting to call these things out that we're finding week over week temperature changes. And what this did in this example, this called action to the customer that this was likely a poor airflow, that you started to have some clogging in one of the honeycomb ducts, and it ended up being a clogged drain in the refrigeration unit. So what this allowed them to do is proactively go find the problem, move the product to another cooler while they split this one down for repairs, and they didn't have any food loss. So this is a great example where technology can help reduce some of those food losses.
The other thing we talk about is, usually when something breaks, it never breaks from 9 to 5, right? That's like blah, blah. So this helps them be able to, schedule maintenance in a time. Again, now we're saving money. Now we're saving on emissions. They're not coming out several times. We have data to kind of show what's going on with the asset.
So similar example, this one's a little bit longer. It's a 12-foot cooler. So we work with customers in healthcare settings, warehouses, groceries, restaurants, food trucks as well. And in this example, you start to kind of detect some underlying patterns. So using AI machine learning, what we were able to do for the customer here was to detect that the right side, which is the green sensor, was operating normal. But all of a sudden, the sensor in the left center started deviating off pattern. Well, typically, when we see those patterns, the machine learning called out a prescriptive action to the customer, but this is likely some type of leak. And what happened was the customer was able to go on site, and sure enough, they called the refrigeration partners, and they detected a freon then. EPA is starting to hand down larger fines. There's actually a customer grocery chain in New York, I think, faced a $400,000 fine from freon leaks. So this is just another example where you're having emissions into the environment that are unhealthy. On top of that, you're having your food loss. As Michele just touched on it, this is usually always at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. You're paying double overtime for a fridge tech to go out there. You've lost product, and you're paying your employees to go out on site at 2 a.m. till they'll knock the doors and let someone in. So this is, again, another example where IoT technology can help empower and reduce loss. Another example, using our technology, we worked with a national retailer. They have a really unique problem they're trying to solve where they rely on their store managers. So in this particular setting, it's usually 1 to 2 people that are running the store. So not a lot of staff, pretty common in this type of footprint. But what happens is when they have a refrigeration failure, they're focused on the customer. Okay, they're checking at the cash register, getting people in and out in the door, trying to sell. Well, naturally, you have this lagging effect where they may not notice, for whatever reason, that there's a fridge failure. Okay, and product is now bad. So not only do they have the risk that they might be selling damaged product or product at poor temperatures, but on top of that, every week they have produce trucks that come in to do deliveries. So now you're unnecessarily wasting emissions from the truck delivery, only for you to get the product of the produce, and you can't really do anything about it because your fridge is down. So now you have waste on top of that. So what we did is we partnered with them, leveraging that kind of 7 to 9 day gap that they were experiencing. And then our technology started sending proactive alerts when we started to see those set point changes in the unit. As a result, they were able to take that 9 day gap down to 1 day. And then we automated through an integration where we could stop the produce trucks from doing unnecessary deliveries. So again, you're reducing waste, you're helping with some of the emissions that are only going there for no reason because there's nothing that they can do about it. So it's just a really neat story in how you kind of create that full circle and loop to solve problems. Last example, just kind of to highlight using technology in the customer setting. So we had a hospital setting in Minnesota on a cancer ward. And it was kind of a touching story. There was a gentleman in biomed. He works on the NICU. And he said, hey, I want to tell you a story here. These kids come into this world with 2 strikes. My job is to make sure they don't get the 3rd strike. Your job is to help me make sure they don't get the 3rd strike because there's critical vaccines and medications in the refrigeration units. So we deployed our technology. And what we started to learn, again, identifying opportunities and prescriptive actions to different problems. And one of them being they were setting the set points of the refrigeration and freezers much lower than they needed to be. We created 2 problems. One, there's energy savings opportunities because it's drawing a lot more to maintain such low temperatures. But the second being, imagine if you should theoretically get 30 years of a refrigerator or 20 years, and you're running it much harder than it needs to run. It's like your heart, you're pumping a lot faster than it needs to. You only have so much time and shortens the longevity of that equipment. And now you're reacting again to a problem. So our technology is able to do these type of prescriptive analytics where you can start having these early warning indicators, reducing energy consumption, and start calling to action so you can play offense. We tell this to customers all the time, play offense, not defense. But more importantly, they can take those medications and vaccines out when we start prescribing targeted actions. Then they can go do the servicing, replace it, whatever they need to do, put product back in, and all of a sudden they have cancer patients that, as you can imagine, in this particular customer, they have people that travel from all over the country, hours and hours. And to be able to say, we can accept you or afford the technology, they had to turn people away and they couldn't do cancer treatments today because they had failures in their equipment and they no longer had the medications. So it's kind of a big impact on product waste and environmental emissions.
On the food side, think about it in terms of you have ice cream in a freezer, right? And it's going in and out of temperature. And now, not only, appearance wise, people are not going to come back. You start losing revenue. It kind of turns into this downstream effect. So to give a little bit of a higher 10,000 foot view of how this works in a facility with our equipment, essentially what you see on the left there is a grocery store or a C-store and tons of sensors. So we are monitoring things as arbitrary as a car wash in Minnesota, right? If the pipes freeze there's an issue to get the salt off your car. But we're also monitoring trucks that are bringing produce or other perishables, and then throughout the facility. Then we're also providing data to the end user to determine what to do when they are seeing an excursion. So right now we have about 400,000 data points that we bring in into data. Danny's point, he was talking about machine learning and AI. Those are big buzzwords for everything. But what we're able to do with all that data then is say, okay, how can we predict this? Oh, this is a defrost cycle. We don't need to alert somebody on that. Or, oh, you know what? This looks like the same time of day every single day. They're leaving the door open. Are they having a delivery? Is this a training opportunity? So how do we use those 4,000 pieces of data? And that turns into about $20 billion and back up in the billions of inventory that we're protecting, whether that's in the vaccine space or in the food space.
Just to kind of bring it full circle, as we mentioned earlier, there's all kinds of sensors out there. We have some of these are our sensors, some of these are what we call them co-opetitions. So what we started to do is change the mindset. We shouldn't compete on safety. Safety should always be above all first. So we started working with different other vendors and let's integrate our technology. Let's integrate some of our sensors so we can put the customer in the operation first. And as a result, now again, you're collecting all this data, all this information. It allows these machine learning models to prescribe different sets of actions, become more targeted with AI. And what we're seeing is a lot of our customers are starting to share all these really neat examples where they had unnecessary waste go down. They've had uninsurable losses go down. And it ends up putting the end consumer in a much healthier situation than where we were maybe 10 years ago.
And at a high level, these are just some of the customers we work with. So again, we touch in the restaurant space, working with Darden brands. So that's Olive Garden, Cheddar's. And then we have Dig, Sweet Greens, a lot of fast casuals, AMC's and the grocery side. Myers, regional to this area, along with Wegmans, Giant Eagle. In the warehouse space, this is kind of a growing spot for us with new regulations coming in, kind of understanding over-the-counter medications and different pharmacopoeia standards where we're supposed to house ambient temperature. So that's becoming a growing factor. Additionally, life sciences. So we work with retail spaces. We work with customers like Novo Nordisk, who are doing the Ozempic medications right now. So that's sales reps. So we're doing things in the homes, which is another kind of been an eye-opening experience where you're taking out home commercial refrigeration and we're using our technology and we're starting to identify things that certain brands, makes and models are just not as efficient at holding defrost cycles as some others. So using that type of information, the customers are able to make more educated purchases. It's just one other story in that we are using our data with make and model information. We had a customer that wanted this particular brand just because of how it looked. It looked a little more elegant. And they thought it would be more appealing to shoppers. What ended up happening, it was probably one of the more underperforming refrigeration units that they had in their entire fleet. So that avoided a costly $100,000 potential mistake on something that maybe didn't look as elegant, but was much more efficient and cost savings for them. And then finally, hospitals, we do a lot with blood banks. We do a lot with fertility, traditional hospital settings with OR and ER as well. And then most importantly, we're doing the mobile transportation. So the at-home medication arena is starting to grow more and more. So again, when we start looking at these large scopes across all these different verticals, all experience some type of waste. And we started with food. So that's kind of we'll focus on the kind of conclusion with the grocery and restaurant space. But this is an opportunity where we can continue to partner with customers. We get excited about it. Doesn't always have to be our technology. We would love it if it was. But more importantly, leveraging any technology to help prescribe targeted actions are going to reduce some of the numbers that Sean has started with. And then just to wrap up, like I said, we are with SmartSense by Digi. We are a business unit of Digi International. Digi is headquartered in Minnesota. 22 years of profitability as a publicly traded company. And these are kind of the 4 quadrants we're trying to help customers reduce. That 1.3 billion tons of waste, the 219 pounds per person. And these are the kind of things that keep us up at night, helping customers partner and reduce those outcomes. I hope this was valuable. Again, thank you for listening to us, and feel free, I'll do the QR code one more time for anybody who didn't capture it. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.